NASCAR is in a crisis.
We don't make money, right? I don't think Hendrick Motorsports has made a profit in 10 years.
That's Jeff Gordon, one of the greatest race car drivers in history, who during his career won 93 races and 4 championships, and is now the vice chairman of Hendrick Motorsports, the most successful team in NASCAR.
300 wins for the Hendrick organization.
It's the team to beat, and the team to beat can't even turn a profit at the track.
If you're going to get in racing, be ready to spend some money. You're not going to walk away profitable.
Year after year, NASCAR teams and their drivers are losing money, while NASCAR itself continues to pull in record profits thanks to a cocktail of shady business practices and buying off politicians. The current business model is specifically designed to continue feeding the all-powerful and destructive billionaire family who owns the sport. But teams and their drivers have finally had enough and might do something drastic that could shake up NASCAR as we know it. To fully understand how we got here, we need to start with something a little boring. Back in 2016, NASCAR introduced charters.
So NASCAR has granted 36 charters that will provide NASCAR Sprint Cup team owners the opportunity to build long-term enterprise value.
Basically a franchise model. See, for a long time, NASCAR teams had been operating like independent businesses, employing independent contractors to drive their cars. The introduction of charters made NASCAR closer to leagues like the NFL and the NBA. They handed out 36 charters to teams that had proven themselves the previous 3 years. On top of the guaranteed entry, it's estimated that charters pay around $8 to $9 million per year. So you're now handed a starting spot in the field and you're entitled to nearly $10 million a year, which all sounds pretty awesome until you realize teams still rely heavily on sponsors, which make up more than half of their revenue. Plus, it costs roughly $18 million a year to field a car before even hiring a driver. And unlike the NFL and NBA, if you don't operate up to NASCAR standards, NASCAR can take away your charter anytime they want, and they're set to expire at the end of the 2024 season.
NASCAR never, I don't think, wanted the charters to ever become a franchise. NASCAR wanted to be able to take them back should a team not operate to the standards that they expect.
So while owning a charter allows good teams to compete every week, giving their fans a guaranteed show, racing is still not a profitable venture because NASCAR simply isn't sharing much of its profits.
Damn it. Come on, man.
Since 2016, 11 teams have gone out of business, with more inevitably on the way. And it's clear why. The business model is completely lopsided by design.
You know, there's 3 stakeholders, the tracks, the teams, and NASCAR. 2 of those stakeholders make 9-figure profits a year, and 1 stakeholder loses 7-figure profits per year.
Right now, NASCAR is in the final year of a 10-year, $8.2 billion media deal. The current revenue split is broken up 3 different ways. 65% of the revenue goes to the tracks, 25% goes to the teams, and 10% goes to NASCAR. Now, you might look at that and go, NASCAR gets the least amount of revenue from that model. Why are you even making this video? What you've told us thus far are lies. Easy. While NASCAR does just get 10% of that, they also own 16 of the tracks in use, meaning they are more than represented in the 65% that goes to the tracks, which is roughly $13 million per race guaranteed, or $197 million that goes directly back into NASCAR's pocket every year. That's not even including concessions, tickets, merch, and so on. Teams with charters get paid around $5.6 million per season. So to summarize, NASCAR tracks are getting roughly $13 million at each of their 16 tracks. Cars are getting roughly a third of that per season. On top of what it costs to field a car, remember, it's $18 million a year before even hiring a driver. $5.6 million hardly makes a dent. In fact, we know it doesn't do much of anything because teams have to hire mechanics, a sales staff, a space to house the cars, buy at least $1 million worth of tires for the season, pay fees to enter each race, buy credentials for their teams, and set up their own hospitality suites at the tracks.
A fair ask is for you to cover our cost to put on this show for you. They won't do that. They refuse to do that.
And headed into the 2025 season, NASCAR got an even better media deal. They secured a shorter deal, 7 years, worth more money, $7.7 billion, a hefty 34% increase from the previous deal. On top of that, S&P is expecting NASCAR to see a 6 to 8% growth in earnings this year, and the sport is estimated to have a positive cash flow of $135 to $145 million. And the profits don't stop there. In 2023, NASCAR's sponsorships brought the sport roughly $767 million. With their new media deal, which expands to streamers, sponsorship revenue headed into 2025 will likely be hovering even closer to $1 billion. But getting a piece of that pie has been a huge lift thanks to the folks standing in the way, the all-powerful France family, led by CEO of NASCAR, Jim France. CEO Jim France is the son of NASCAR founder Bill France Sr., who passed away in 1992. After his father passed, Bill France Jr. took over, and then his son, Brian France, took over. But in 2018, Brian got in trouble with the law. So Jim France took over as CEO of NASCAR, while his niece, Lisa France Kennedy, serves as vice chair. Jim France doesn't appear in front of the media very often. In fact, the most recent clip of him on YouTube is from 5 years ago. But looking at the way he's run NASCAR and taking a peek under the hood of his own personal finances can tell us a lot about a guy who definitely wants to remain hidden. He has an estimated net worth of $1.3 billion, money he and his family have largely used to support Republican causes. Jim France has donated $1.9 million to federal political groups. One donation we know he got something in return for was a cool $100,000 to Florida's Republican Party, a donation that was rewarded handsomely by Florida's own Ron DeSantis.
Today, I'm going to sign into law HB 7071. This is actually the largest tax relief in the history of the state of Florida.
DeSantis signed a bill permanently exempting Daytona 500 tickets from the state's 6% sales tax, a deal that experts believe will benefit NASCAR much more than consumers. Because the Daytona 500 is one of 16 tracks the France family owns, this tax break is expected to line their pockets while at the same time costing the people of Florida $6 million a year.
So basically, this is a multi-million-dollar tax subsidy. Basically, it's corporate welfare for billionaires.
America!
So as Jim and the rest of his family line their pockets, thanks to that nearly $8 billion media rights deal, the profits they're poised to pull in from the sport itself, the profits from the 16 tracks they own, nearly $1 billion in sponsors, and super generous politicians saving them from a hefty sales tax, NASCAR is in a better position than ever to pay their teams and their drivers more money. But will they? Michael Jordan, yeah, that Michael Jordan, who co-owns the racing team 23XI, told the New York Times, in all partnerships, if you grow the pie, that means your business is going to continue to grow. And to grow the pie, you have got to make sure everybody's healthy within the partnership. If our ownership in NASCAR is losing money and NASCAR is the only one making money, that's not a good partnership. And that's exactly what's happening. NASCAR's profits are soaring and teams and drivers are circling the drain.
Yep, I'm flying through the air. This is not good.
This is especially true for the sport's independent drivers. Because only 36 of 40 drivers are awarded charters, there's 4 open spaces for independent teams. These unchartered teams have to qualify for the races and finish near the top to just come close to breaking even. Carl Long is one of those drivers.
How realistic is it for you to break even on a weekend when you show up at the racetrack?
Well, that's our goal, is at least break even.
Independent drivers like Long aren't awarded the guaranteed money that comes with charters, and because they have the chance of not even qualifying, it makes it tough for a sponsor to attach themselves to a driver who might not even race. Which is why teams want to make the charter program permanent, so they have a guaranteed entry or a lifeline to at least get the chance at some money to make this work. Again, the charters are set to expire at the end of the 2024 season.
That charter is a franchise, and that we need ownership of that. For permanent ownership forever, right? Whereas NASCAR's a bit apprehensive to give the charters to the teams permanently.
NASCAR's teams are looking to win on 4 big issues: more money to stay afloat, a piece of revenue from new business opportunities like gambling rights, to have a voice in big business decisions, and to make the charters permanent. But it's unclear if any of that will ever happen.
There was a little bit of traction. However, it looks like NASCAR's not acknowledging the negotiating committee anymore.
Jim France is refusing to meet with the Racing Team Alliance, a coalition of teams and the closest body they have to a union. France is instead choosing to meet with teams one-on-one, essentially loosening the grip of the RTA as he looks to destroy any unity between the teams. And he's already said that permanent charters are a non-starter. But he might want to do something soon because time is running out. The New York Times reported that if nothing changes, teams will collectively lose more than $200 million over the next 5 years. That's bad. And it's also not the best incentive for any reasonable owner or driver to flock to your sport if they know that by doing that, they'll just end up going bankrupt. Which is why some teams have hired heavy-hitting attorney Jeffrey Kessler, a guy known for getting NCAA athletes paid. Kessler told the New York Times there's a chance that all of the top racing teams and their drivers could form a league of their own. And if NASCAR tried to stop them, Kessler said they opened themselves up to antitrust violations. So that's what could happen if NASCAR keeps operating the way it does. Their teams and their drivers could split off and create something of their own, with transparent finances, more revenue sharing, and the opportunity to leave behind a legacy that so many drivers have spent decades trying to create. As the clock ticks down to the 2025 season, the stakes have never been higher. Will NASCAR heed the call for change, or will it drive itself into irrelevance? The answer lies in the hands of the France family, who control every single aspect of a sport that is getting closer and closer to its final lap. Thanks for watching our video. If you like this story and you want more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have stories that you want us to investigate, drop them in the comments below.